In today's episode, I'm going to teach you how to launder drug money. I'm joking. Or am I? Stay tuned to find out if and how. And while we may or may not cover laundering drug money, we're definitely going to slide to Detroit and talk Royce da 5'9's new album, specifically a song off it called Thou Shalt. Then we're going to slide to New York and bust a line from Cameron's Get It in Ohio. Then we're going to cover Jadakiss and Styles P joint, We Gon' Make It, talking safe rooms and hideaway spots and things. You ready? All right, let's go.
What's up, fam? What's up? What's up, fam? What's up? What's up, fam? What's up, fam? What's up? What's up?
What's up, fam? Matthew Sewell here, real estate plug, your realtor and investment strategist, back with another episode of Rap and Real Estate, where we talk rap, artists, their lyrics, and all things real estate. So let's get into it. So, if you remember, the other week we covered a song featuring Eminem and Royce da 5'9 off Eminem's latest album called You Gon' Learn. And I told you that Royce da 5'9 is one of my favorite artists of all time. Well, today you're gonna get some more insight as to why. This man is a lyrical genius, and every time he drops something, I gotta play it back to back to back because it's layered and laced with similes, metaphors, all types of entendres, and honestly, I don't know how he does it, but he's super talented. And, side note, an allegory is a story or picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political one. And from what I gather, this album definitely has a bunch of layered moral and political meanings throughout it, so the album title definitely fits. And without further ado, let's jump into it. Yo, Siri, I need to hear that new track from Royce da 5'9.
Oh, you stood in for the bar exam, were you? You want to hear some hip hop? Here you go.
We attribute the original way we articulate through Brixiate, zipped up on 18-wheelers on interstates. We distribute weight, then matriculate into real estate.
I honestly don't know how he does it. And he does it so consistently too. Like, these lines drive me crazy. Royce is talking about pushing weight and then jumping into real estate, which, if you've heard the term weight before, might have been referred to as drugs. So he's talking about selling drugs and taking that money and putting it into real estate. Now, I'm gonna take this one step further. I think that drugs can be anything. It could be food, could be music, arts, crafts. It can be anything that you've made money with off the books and you're trying to legitimize that money. A lot of times if you're making money off the books, it might be illegal. So that's the number one reason why people take drug money and put it into real estate. Now, why would somebody do that? Well, Jay-Z says that it's a way that you can rinse your money. And if you're in law enforcement, you might call it laundering money. Depends on which side of the fence you're on. Now, real quick, I want to make this clear. I do not advocate for the use or doings of anything illegal. I will also say that I think that a lot of things that are legal are stupid. And I think that a lot of things that are legal should be illegal. Just because something is illegal doesn't make it wrong. Just as the inverse is true. Just because something is legal doesn't make it right. For example, slavery was for a long time legal. And there is no way that that is right or good. Just as reading for Black people here in the United States was illegal. Yes, there were anti-literacy laws that were put in place to keep people of color here in the United States from reading. Anti-literacy laws? Yes, there were laws put in place for about 100 years that made it illegal for black people to read. Now, don't think that just because it was 100 years, like people before that time period were reading happily. No, not the case. It was just an extension of the slave codes. Just to know that it was made into a law and it was illegal. Yes, illegal, and yet still very wrong. So I rest my case. Now, back to laundering money. Many people have found it extremely beneficial to move weight, then matriculate into real estate. Because FDR said, real estate cannot be lost or stolen, nor can it be carried away. Purchased with common sense, paid for in full, and managed with reasonable care, it is about the safest investment in the world. Now, for it to be the safest investment in the world, it means a lot. FDR said paid for in full, so we're gonna run with that. But just know that that's not the only way to buy and have a safe investment. Just make sure you pay the note, because if you don't, that could lead to foreclosure, and you don't want them problems. Please avoid the foreclosure. Now back to the laundromat. I feel like there's a clever play on words there, but I'll figure it out later. In rinsing the money, people often choose real estate for the same reasons that investors choose real estate. The prices are generally stable, and it tends to appreciate. Not only those things, but the owner can live in the property and or rent it out. How dope is that? You can take money that you've made off the books, purchase some property, turn it into an investment, and then when it comes time to sell, chances are that you'll make some money off the sale, and your money is almost impossible to tell that it's not legit. Now, that's dope. One could buy a property with money made off the books, live in the home or rent it out, turn it into an investment property, and when it comes time to sell, chances are that you're gonna make some money off the property, and it'll be nearly impossible to tell that that money is not legit. That is a much better idea than burying it in your backyard and letting it get moldy, or putting it in a bank account and letting it get seized. Sees what I'm saying? Real estate offers a path to legitimacy that's better than buying stocks or other assets of the like, simply because it's subject to less scrutiny. Those other institutions have to report suspicious transactions. Buying real estate is the last step in what law enforcement officials describe as a three-step money laundering process: placement, layering, and integration. Placement is when money launderers get their money into the system. When the money comes in forms of cash, it can be a long, drawn-out process because money mules are hitting the banks, making small transactions over and over again so as to not be detected. Next is layering. And in this step, people often set up shell companies, which are companies that only exist on paper, have no office, and no employees. But they may have a bank account, hold passive investments, and or be the registered owner of passive investments, and offshore accounts to hide the identity of the beneficial owner or the person who ultimately owns the company or money of the accounts. Now, when setting up an LLC in states like Nevada, Delaware, Wyoming, you don't even have to list the owner's name, but you do have to say a director and you do have to say an agent. And that doesn't even have to be the actual owner. There are companies that you can use that their sole purpose is to be the director or agent of these LLCs for people that don't want their identity to be found out. Launderers will set up a web of these companies, making searching for the beneficial owner extremely complicated and time-consuming. Paul Manafort, longtime Republican campaign consultant, is accused of having $18 million generated in Ukraine lobbying work in offshore accounts that were then funneled into a web of shell companies. The people that are laundering money come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. And the products they push vary, but what remains consistent is the need to rinse their money after it's been made off the books. The final step is integration, which means moving your money into a venture that appears to be legit. With laundered money, the launderers will buy whatever makes sense that'll help them launder the money made from illegal activities. It could be a bar, could be a gentleman's club, could be a literal laundromat. We've seen this time and time again. That money can't go into the bank for fear of seizure, so something's got to be done with it. People will buy exotic cars, jewelry, clothes, all types of stuff, and this is where real estate comes in. One of the advantages of laundering money through real estate is that you can move a lot of money in one transaction, especially if you're buying in expensive markets like the one that I live in here in California, the Bay Area, New York, or Miami. And in these places, laundering through real estate is common. But quite possibly the best part of laundering money through real estate is that the reporting requirements for suspicious activity is almost non-existent, particularly compared to banks and other financial institutions that are legally required to do the too short on anything that looks suspicious. Too short. Blow the whistle. Never mind. They gotta blow the whistle if it looks suspicious, all right? A lawyer involved in a real estate transaction isn't necessarily required to blow the whistle on a buyer who has an LLC buying things in cash. A lawyer involved in a real estate transaction isn't necessarily required to blow the whistle on an LLC who has funds where the beneficial owner is hidden. People pay cash for properties all the time in the name of LLCs, so nothing looks off about that. But some lawyers will flag it off of conscience, but others don't. Since this process is extremely effective, it's very difficult to catch money launderers here in the United States. If the crime involves offshore accounts or companies, U.S. officials have to get a hold of that government from that country in order to get information. Now, sometimes they take months to respond, if they even respond at all. And prosecutors looking for a money laundering paper trail still have to find a witness to testify that the alleged criminal made the transaction. It would seem that it's a little difficult to get caught up in money laundering here in the US. So when people get caught, it's usually from doing something stupid, like using a personal email to set up a company, or some other personal information. So if someone you know is, you know what, just don't get caught slipping in any case, so you can continue to get paid in full. And speaking of paid in full, Cameron has an older song off his album Crime Pays, in which he says,
think about Guy Fisher, never met him, but goddamn, that's my nigga. I figure real estate investor, pie flipper.
Now, I had to do a little research because I had no idea who Guy Fisher was, but Guy Fisher was the first black man to own and operate the Apollo Theater in Harlem since he bought it in '77. Now, my guy, Guy, also got into some trouble on some RICO and Nicky Barnes snitching ass put him in jail for life. But we're not here to talk about that. What we are talking about is the real estate invested pie flipping. Guy Fisher was invested in real estate, owning the Apollo, which is dope. And during that time period, I can only imagine what that was like for the culture in Harlem. Now, I'm just gonna take a wild guess as to where his money came from, but I'm pretty sure that it has something to do with pie flipping. I'm pretty sure that it has something, now just taking a wild guess where he got his money from. Now just taking a wild guess on where he got his money from, probably had something to do with pie flipping. And that goes back into washing your money. That drug money can only take you so far, unless you're a pharmaceutical or a cannabis company, which is an entirely different conversation that we'll cover later, but real estate is a great way to transition. And speaking of Ohio, it's looking like an interesting place to purchase property. I've got a client that wants to buy an investment property out there, and the prices are ridiculous. According to the Real Wealth Network, the median price of a 3-bedroom home in Columbus is $165, and it's experienced a 9% increase in population growth since 2010, which makes it one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. Now that directly affects an increased demand for housing, which you can imagine that it also affects home values and rental rates. So it does seem like a good chance for equity. I've seen homes, not in Columbus, but in Cleveland, for $7,000. $7,000. Was it a fixer-upper? Of course it was, but it was $7,000. I've also seen duplexes in the same area go for around $30,000, which makes me wonder, what the hell is going on? So if you're looking to invest in an area outside of the one that you live in, there's definitely going to be some research and planning that goes into it. But if the property sounds promising, then it might be worth it. So if you're looking for a place with homes priced under the national average, a place with good population growth and rents, then you might get it in Ohio. Now back to New York. If you're a hip hop head, I know that you've heard this song. Jadakiss, Styles P, We Gon' Make It. DJ Premier produced it, so you know it's fire. And DJ Premier is one of my favorite producers too, so I'm here for it. Not to mention the lyrics and the flow in this go crazy, so here you go.
The house costs $1 million. Sitting on the beach, and the only thing I know if it's furnished, I'ma take it. My bathtub lift up, my walls do a 360.
Yo, I'm right there with my man Styles P. I love being able to walk outside of the house and hit the beach. I love having my feet in the sand. I love the water, so having a beachfront property sounds incredible. But I don't know what his deal is with the home being furnished. But to each his own. And that's something that you can negotiate in purchasing a house. If it's staged and you want to keep the stage furniture, you can negotiate that. If it doesn't have any furniture in it and you want them to put furniture in it, that can be negotiated. If you want something, don't be afraid to ask, because worst they can say is no. And usually no means no. No means no, but in real estate, a lot of times no is where the negotiations begin. Now, the dopest part of this song is the convertibles. He says, my bathtub lifts up. Now, the dopest part of this song is the convertibles. He says, my bathtub lifts up and my wall does 360. Like, yo, what? This sounds like the ultimate secret space. And I would love to have a super secret safe house space where the floors lift up and I can enter the basement or whatever else. I love all of it. You know who else had a tub that lift up? El Chapo. And who's gonna think to look under a tub? Nobody, that's who. One of my favorite things about homeownership is the ability to customize. I'm a creative, so naturally I like customizing things and making them mine. And that's what you have the opportunity to do when you own your own home. I love the idea of hideaway spots, customized things, safe houses, all of that. And speaking of customized spaces, there's a local company out of San Francisco. It's a startup called Bumblebee Spaces. And what they're doing is they're hiding and motorizing beds and storage things to come from your ceiling. Dope, right? I'm gonna put the link in the description so you can check it out. And if you buy something, tell them your real estate plug sent you. And speaking of customizing, I'm a creative, so I love making things mine. Love the idea of hiding things, safe houses, secret compartments, all of that. And speaking of secret compartments, there's a startup based out of San Francisco that is hiding and motorizing beds and other compartments to come from the ceiling when you're ready to summon them. I'm a huge fan of technology and the innovation that comes with it. To be real, you'll probably see me with something like this in the very near future. It's like a futuristic Murphy bed. Dope, right? I'm gonna include a link in the description so you can check them out. And if you buy something, tell them your real estate plug sent you. So this one's to customizing and making our lives ours. We gonna make it, we gonna make it. All right, I know we covered a lot, but I wanna know what your thoughts are on Royce da 5'9's album. What do you think about laundering money? And do you know any other ways, maybe better ways to launder money than through real estate? What about the low price properties in Columbus? Would you get it in Ohio? Or have you ever considered a safe house or convertible furniture? Let me know. I want to know what you got going on inside that head of yours. Leave it in the comments and let's talk about it. And with that being said, if you have any questions on anything that you've seen or heard, do not hesitate to hit me up. You can find more information on my website at www.myrealestateplug.com, or you can find me on all the social medias at myrealestateplug. You can call or text me. And remember, my name is Matthew Sewell. I'm your real estate plug, and I'm here with you and for you.